So, we're here because the app is a great piece of technology that really brings together mariners and right whales in a pretty unique way to solve problems that they both share. And it comes out on an iPad and an iPhone, which is pretty cool in itself. So why do right whales need their own app? Does every animal in the world need its own app? Probably not, but right whales certainly do. And one of the reasons is because they are critically endangered. 350 to 550 left in the world. You can walk down the street of Boston and find that number of people in 100 yards. The population is really quite vulnerable. Unfortunately, ship strikes are one of the leading causes of right whale mortality. So if we're going to save right whales, we have to solve that issue. There's another issue, which is that there's a lot of things that mariners have to know that apply to them to try to protect right whales. And if we're going to have compliance is best if that information is streamlined and provided in a manner that they're used to working with, and it is complete in one place. And also, mariners have been fined for violating the seasonal management areas that have particular speed limits attached to them. So the mariners have a problem, which is they need information to protect right whales and comply. If they don't comply, they risk being fined for non-compliance. And of course, if there isn't compliance, then the conservation benefit that we're trying to create for right whales by all this mosaic, as Patrick said, of conservation measures really won't be successful. So what does Whale Alert provide? It provides all that stuff. It provides all the things that mariners need to know about right whale protection in one place. And it provides that information on nautical charts, which is what mariners are used to working with. So by combining these two things, we can hopefully improve mariners' ability to comply. And we know they want to comply from watching them and dealing with them and talking with them on a nearly daily basis. When we went out to NYK and the Boston Harbor pilots and other groups, we immediately were embraced as people that were helping them solve a problem, not problem people coming to them. So that was very refreshing. And it also gave us a lot of confidence that this would work. So what does Whale Alert provide? First, it has a GPS inside the iPhone or the iPad that lets you know where your ship is in real time and space. And then it has the auto detection buoys that Chris and Mike have been talking about. It has seasonal management areas, and I'll talk more about this as time goes on, but these are parts of the ocean that the National Marine Fisheries Service, through lots of years of surveys, have identified as areas that are likely to contain lots of right whales. You don't know exactly where right whales will be, but you know they'll be somewhere in this area. So in those areas at particular times of the year, vessels are supposed to drop speeds to 10 knots. There's real-time dynamic management areas. The National Marine Fisheries Service, Kristen Kahn and her group, fly over the ocean continuously on good weather days to try to locate right whales. If they find a bunch of them, they create what's called the dynamic management area around them, a block that contains those animals, and ships hopefully will voluntarily slow down in those blocks, but they have to know that they're there, and they have to be able to see them. There are real-time areas to be avoided. So there's parts of the ocean that right whales are likely to be in, and the best idea is to go around those. You can only go around them if you really know where they are. And then there's mandatory ship reporting areas. As vessels come into the United States, if they're coming into an area with lots of right whales, historically, there's kind of a trip line there that they're supposed to report to NOAA and get information from NOAA at the same time. Again, it's best to comply if you actually know where that line is. So basically, that's what we've done. This is what the app looks like. And this is kind of the mosaic of things that a mariner needs to know and comply with when they come into our waters. So you can see there's a lot of stuff there. I'll point out some of it. This blue line here is the mandatory ship reporting line. So that's when they're supposed to cross that line. They're supposed to get information from NOAA and give information to NOAA. Now, with our app, when they cross that line, a little pop-up will appear that tells them what they're supposed to do or aids them in that. These brown areas here, and this is from an iPad picture just a couple days ago, these brown areas are those seasonal management areas that I discussed. So a boat, when they enter that area, is supposed to go 10 knots. This gray area is a dynamic management area. That, when a boat goes in there, again, they're supposed to go to 10 knots. So there's all sorts of things happening here. This is an area of recommended routes that a mariner needs to know. So what this app does is give them information, and then it reminds them about that information. So for instance, as a boat comes down, and again, they'll be on their little GPS so they can see their boat. As they get close to one of these purple areas that's a recommended route, when they get 5 nautical miles away from it, a pop-up appears and says, hey, you're coming close to a recommended area. Please use that route. Same thing for the dynamic areas, the SMAs down here and up here. And then we also have these crazy looking things here, which are these little whale tails with circles around them. And this is the acoustic buoy system that Chris and Mike Trammell have been talking about, Chris Clark. So we've got 10 acoustic buoys sitting in the shipping lanes through here. Now we've already moved the shipping lanes that many of you know about to transit areas that have the fewest whales possible, but because there's so many whales in New England waters, and the sanctuary in particular, there's still lots of whales there. So this, only for right whales, will pick up the sound of a right whale and tell it to ship captains, as Chris was so nicely explaining. So let me show how this works a little bit better. So here we have one of the acoustic buoys from Accelerate Energy, and that buoy has a hydrophone hanging down that can hear lots of different sounds, and it's got an automatic detection algorithm on it that will separate right whale calls from all the other sounds in the ocean. Chris, can you give me a right whale call? Oh. So they pick out that call. It gets sent by the surface buoy. It sends that information up to a satellite, goes back down to Cornell, and they decide if it truly was a right whale. Yep, that's what a right whale looks like right there. And then that information is sent out to a Coast Guard place in Cape Cod, and one of our partners, the National Seashore, is hosting that location, and that information is then sent out to a vessel onto their iPad looking like this. If the circle is green, it means there's no right whale detected within the last 24 hours. If it's yellow, then a right whale has been detected, and that will stay yellow for 24 hours, and ships are requested to slow to 10 knots and increase their vigilance. So it's a great system, it's a unique system, and it's part of a suite of things that are meant to protect right whales. This is a part of the app that has all sorts of different portions to it. This describes the auto detection buoys. This describes, I think I'm looking over there, the seasonal management areas. This is mandatory ship reporting, and this is areas to be avoided. So those are the main little sections that the app is going to deal with. And then each one of those sections, if you click on it, will give you more information. So if you want to know about the right whale collision avoidance system, you can click on that and get different pages that will more thoroughly describe it to the mariner. Same thing with right whale seasonal management areas, and I'll show how this works specifically. That has lots of pages attached to it so that the mariner can get more in-depth information. Same thing with the mandatory ship reporting and the areas to be avoided. So again, everything that a mariner needs to know to protect right whales and comply with the most recent regulations are right there built into the app. There it is. So to give you an example of just one instance of how this will work, these brown areas here are the seasonal management areas. Now those will appear, and they're active only during certain portions of the year. So this brown polygon, which represents the space of the seasonal management area, will only appear on the digital chart during the time that that seasonal management area is active. The rest of the time it's invisible, so the mariner doesn't have to worry about it. But when it is active, the mariner very quickly can see that it's on his chart. Now this is, for instance, a boat that's transiting that. When they cross the trip line there to enter the seasonal management area, this pop-up will appear. Its appearance will be announced by to get the mariner's attention. They can either close it or they can get more information. So if they want to view the rule, they can click on that, and that will bring up more information about the rule for them. If they want to know more about the area that they're in, they can do that. And for the Northeast, it'll tell them more about the rule here. And if they want to know the actual coordinates, they can click on that, and up come the coordinates. So again, all the information that the mariner needs is there visually on the digital chart, so they can access it easily, and they can get more in-depth information if they need. And the seasonal management areas, this is not just a New England app, although most of us are right now focused on New England because that's what we are. But seasonal management areas and other right whale protection measures are actually all up and down the coast, because right whales in the United States are spending time in the wintertime off Jacksonville, Florida, and in the summertime up here off New England and up into the Bay of Fundy. So all of these things are on the app. These things will only be displayed during this period that they're active, so the mariner immediately knows what they have to pay attention to. And you can get it from the App Store for free. And you can get more information from the Stellwagen webpage. There's a lot of things that a mariner might want to know. For instance, there's a startup manual there to make sure it's a fairly simple thing, but if they need more information or they need to be reminded, there's a startup manual. There's also a detailed setup and question and answer sheet, and tutorial videos produced by Brad's group at Seed Demo, and information on how to set it up. Now, one of the things you have to have is a little wireless device that plugs into a pilot port to send information from an AAS system to the iPad. And you need that to get the more dynamic types of information. So a lot of the information is built right into the iPad, but things that can change quickly, such as the auto detection buoys or the dynamic management areas, that information needs to be received by a Wi-Fi network that's transferred to the iPad from the AAS system of the boat. So one of the really important things about Whale Alert is really the people that came together to make it possible. We've got 12 different groups. Each group has played really an integral part in the development and testing and use of it, and that's really been exciting to put that together and see it all come together. And kind of the take-home message here is that it really takes a village to protect a right whale or do any type of conservation. And this particular village has been really, really exciting and extremely productive. So there you go. That's how you get it.